Okay, thank you for having me and welcome. Today we'll be talking about from independent to integrated, foundations for rapid benefits and minimal frustration for data unification projects. The things that you can expect to take away today, there's three things here: an approach for successful delivery of data products to a business unit that doesn't have mature data management. 6 essential elements of a successful, efficient, and self-contained product delivery team. And kind of like an opportunity to expedite results from sourcing data from existing systems for the fraction of the cost of system replacement. But first, we're going to do a safety moment. This is a really common thing in the oil and gas industry. Some of you might be familiar with it, others might not, but it does a few things that I'll explain at the end of the safety moment. What this one is, this is an American CSB report about a fatal naphtha release, so like a gasoline release, and fire at the Husky Toledo facility. There was a vapor cloud that ignited and it caused a flash fire in Oregon, and it began. Two employees were getting liquid out of a vessel that was pressurized. The liquid came out, started on fire, and 2 employees who were actually brothers both died. In addition, there was almost $600 million in property damage and loss of use. There was about 23,000 pounds of naphtha released during the event. So that was kind of the source of the fire. That's a lot of energy for sure. There weren't any offsite impacts, which is fortunate to the public, of course. And this was the largest fatal incident at a BP-operated refinery since BP Texas City in 2005, which resulted in the deaths of 15 workers and injured another 180. And there's actually a member on our team that was at Texas City during that event, and I might talk about that a bit more later. Some findings of the report, these are CSB's findings. There was a liquid overflow, and the prevention safeguards weren't sufficient. I mean, that seems really obvious. There's structured approaches that support how many layers of protection that you need. One of those things is called HAZOP, Hazard and Operability Study. Abnormal situation management didn't appropriately address certain types of operational change. So there was some changes in how the operation was going, and those weren't properly addressed in that sort of assessment. There's something called alarm flooding in the basic process control system. So one of the layers is just a control system that automates the process, kind of like normally, keeps it on the road usually. And that system was kind of flooded the board operators with alarms. And so they didn't properly manage alarms with metrics and performance management. And learnings from past incidents weren't communicated successfully. And so there was opportunities to learn. There was opportunities where operators could have known what to do in this situation, but they were prevented from doing so because the learnings weren't properly communicated. What's most interesting about that is that analytics could help with this. For liquid overflow prevention safeguards, we could quantify and represent our reliance on human intervention controls. So like when operators have to manually do stuff, and including the controls from HAZOP. For the abnormal situation management, we could quantify and provide timely awareness of operational changes, such as crude slate changes. When you change crudes, you might get different amounts of liquid and vapor coming off of different parts of the units. And that can cause some pretty serious upsets like this one. For alarm flooding, we could support alarm management, an improvement project that we're doing with visualization to leadership to help them understand how progress is going with that. Learnings from incidents not communicated successfully, well, we could implement visualizations and metrics related to incident categories that are occurring and have occurred at our facility. And that could help us decide what we should communicate to people, what learnings we should communicate to people. One of the reasons I wanted to share this safety moment with you today isn't the actual safety moment stuff. It's actually, there's a few things. One is that data management is really important to us because if we don't do a good job of it, it might not help us prevent fires and explosions and fatalities. The second thing is that every time you have a communication, you can take the opportunity to incorporate projects you're working on to try and kind of like sell them, pitch them, champion them as you go. And this is an example of that as well. So I just wanted to include that. So before we go much further, I'll just talk a little bit about the Co-op Refinery Complex and our owner, FCL, Federated Cooperatives Limited, the cooperative retailing system, and our members. So as a refinery, we're a single refinery, independent refinery. We're owned by this company called FCL. It's kind of a wholesaling company that's owned by these local retail co-ops. There's about 160 of them, and they together own Federated Cooperatives Limited. But those local co-ops are actually owned by members who shop at those co-ops, buy gasoline, groceries, agricultural products, that sort of thing, from those locals. And the CRC is kind of really the economic engine for the rest of the CRS. That's pretty much how that works. Federated Cooperatives Limited has about 23,000 employees. There's 623 communities that are served by the CRS, about 2.2 million member owners. So we're owned by 2.2 million individuals, one person, one vote. And there's about 3,500 FCL employees, and there's 155 retail members as of the generation of this slide. The refinery itself, we fuel Western Canada. That's our mission. We're one of Canada's largest integrated refining and upgrading complexes. We have 900 employees. We sit on a pretty big swath of land there. We process about 130,000 barrels a day, so that's maybe a medium-sized refinery in kind of American terms. We process heavy crude, sour synthetic crude, and sweet synthetic crude, and we make gasoline and diesel primarily. We just celebrated our 90th anniversary, so been around for a long time. None of our units are that old. I think kind of the oldest equipment that we have, it kind of dates to the 50s, mid-50s sometime. As far as the market landscape that we're experiencing, you can see some bad news headlines here. So, there's a lot of refineries, a lot of oil and gas companies are experiencing headwinds right now, and then there's some obvious things around carbon emissions, for example, that they're challenging for everyone to manage. The refinery business is changing. That's the reality. And so we really had to do something different. And so one of the things that I was involved in was being a subject matter expert as part of the digital transformation project and working on data analytics as well. We needed to do something new. CRC is super complex. I won't get into a lot of detail there, but we're a very, very complex refinery. You could almost think of us as 3 very small refineries rather than one big one. The need is urgent. We need to make sure to get those profits to the locals. Competitive pressures are ever present. Our data sources are numerous. There's a lot of data, both process, financial, yield accounting, like material accounting, data sources, pretty wide variety of data sources. We really need to make data-informed decisions. Like engineering-wise, that's a really important facet of the work. And we're kind of the underdog. We're a small, single refinery, and that causes us problems. We have to be our own head office and that sort of thing. Our owners aren't super familiar with the oil and gas business. So we came up with this digital transformation solution. It was detailed. There was a lot of opportunity there. It was the timing was right around just kind of during and after COVID, and it was really I thought it was really clever that what we would do is we do this data analytics project, kind of like dovetailed in with it, and as new data sources got supplied by digital transformation, we would just do the data analytics stuff, and poof, we would be it'd be a nice little elegant solution. And then it got canceled. Cost too much money. So much for elegant. So we threw that out the window. Strike digital transformation. So instead, what we did is we decided that we would just continue on with data analytics with the data that we had. We knew that the problems were the same and that the solution would be the same, and that we could work with our partner Teradata to do some good work. And so that's what we did. We wanted to increase data democratization. We really wanted to provide people the opportunity to increase the speed of decision. We're kind of legendarily bureaucratic and trying to avoid that. Reduce the time spent on data gathering and manipulation. I'm sure it was 80% of the time, and we still spend a lot more time than we need to doing that. We wanted to enable efficiency analysis rather than that data preparation. Have consistent metrics across the corporation, across the organization. People really like to manually do metrics, and one of the reasons why is because they can just manipulate the numbers. They can change the definition to satisfy what they feel good is, and that's something you really need to avoid. Building some stuff that's suitable for the future for the manufacturing business unit, kind of a broader organization, and enable analytics at scale. I kind of had a secret aspiration of automating this benchmark study, and some of you might have heard of me talking about it. It's the Solomon study. About 85% of the world's refining capacity subscribes to this. We spend about 2,000 hours every second year putting together inputs for that, and then we get the results back about 6 months later, and then we study those for another year, spend another 2,000 hours doing that. That's pretty good, and we've gotten really good at that, but what we really want to do is be able to know the answer to that question in between studies. Get kind of like real-time or frequent information about how we're performing against ourselves and against our competitors, and that's what that would do. So how are we doing this as far as a product delivery approach? I guess maybe now is a good time. I don't have my speaker notes, so my apologies, but now is maybe a good time for me to say I'm not an IT person. I'm an industrial engineer. It might have been obvious to everybody. You're not going to get any IT person stuff from me, really. I know good IT people. I can understand what they're saying some of the time, but that's not what I'm here about. What I'm here about is really actually the product delivery and how to get value to the business. So that's what the rest of this presentation really is about. And so there's kind of 6 things. You need to have a clear vision. There needs to be a business need. You need to have a solid team. You need to, Agile, I think, is absolutely essential, actually. You need to kind of have a structured approach, and you need to work together with the entire organization. And so we'll go through those 6 kind of like key items that I feel are required to do a good product delivery. The first thing is having a clear vision and be very business performance centric. So don't have a solution that's looking for a problem. Make sure that you're having a problem that you're setting out to solve and that you're going to deliver against. So if you have something like you've got this SharePoint and subfolders and files, this is how we manage a lot of our information super manually, and people get paid a lot of money and then manually work with information structured in that way. Huge Excel spreadsheets, millions of points very, very regularly in our Excel spreadsheets. And you need to think about all of these kind of different facets of things. So we have an operational excellence management system that has 15 elements and 5 kind of different behaviors that we expect out of our people. We have a business performance management system that is kind of structured as far as the KPI tree and the metric tree, and also how the meetings all roll up together to organize our business daily, weekly, monthly, and annually. And then providing these data analytics with support from this performance-based leadership, which is really like applied behavioral analysis, more kind of like frontline stuff for the most part there. And what that allows you to do is put together solutions to the problems that you have that are really focused on what the business needs. And so this is a pretty blurry example of some energy intensity work that we've done. So this is kind of like, you can kind of see some cohorting of the information. And I saw some K-means presentations earlier, but what this is that when we do a turnaround, we turn around kind of like one area at a time, usually. And so those are kind of different operating regimes that we get different energy efficiencies out of. One of the really interesting things about this is as we actually run the most crude through, we actually see a reduction in the amount of energy we use to generate steam, like an absolute reduction, not a intensity-based reduction, and it was a pretty interesting finding there. The second thing is just knowing that there's a real business need. You need to analyzing and managing data is critical to any business, really. Reducing the time spent is so important. But we really needed management to have a clear, more consistent and timely understanding of the organizational performance. Sometimes it was monthly, sometimes it was annually, sometimes it was never. They really didn't know how we were doing. They couldn't tell you. And we really wanted to get them to a place where they could know. And that would get them to a place also where they'd be able to make some strategic decisions in a better way. And something simple, like the drill down roll up functionality that everybody would experience and think is normal here, is challenging in Excel, and we often don't have it. And so having that, just a simple change like that, really satisfies a business need for us. One of the key things to do is always be evaluating where you're going to see the benefits and kind of like what the costs are, how hard it's going to be, that kind of thing, how ready other solutions are, to make sure that you're getting the most benefit out of your effort. You need to have a strong team. So we have a sponsor that really understands things, and it's kind of a cheerleader. She's really passionate about data-driven decision making. She's seen it before from another organization, so that's excellent. You need a champion with vision, tenacity, and the ability to bridge between the business experts and the developer team. Kind of like a translator sometimes a coach, especially for the business. They need a coach. Sometimes the IT people do too, to kind of understand the business perspective there for sure. And that's kind of part of what I do. We have a technical project manager from Teradata. They're on site, and that is absolutely key. I can't imagine them doing it remotely. And he's done a great job learning the business. He knows the technical stuff. He kind of like transforms the need into technical specs with a little bit of help from others. He's completely independent. His name's Asif Arshad, and if you guys get the opportunity to work with him, I highly recommend it. We have an industry expert to bridge enterprise information management and business need. This is Johnny Gibson, and anybody who's worked with him, he is outstanding, and I highly recommend it as well. And I understand he's really good at the IT stuff. But for me, the big thing that he brings is actually refinery-specific knowledge. He's done a ton of work in the refinery space, and he is an exceptional resource for us. He brought a data model, like a conceptual data model to us that has really helped us do a good job of that data modeling work. And just kind of something that's interesting for our organization, being kind of fairly immature with our data management practices. People have no idea and don't care at all about that stuff. So maybe it's 85% of the project work is against things that nobody cares about. They just want the data in the pretty graphs at the end, maybe the drill down, drill up kind of stuff, but that's really all they want, and they don't care how it gets there. And so you have to do a lot of work to convince people it's worth it, because they can't understand why it's so hard. Like, they can do graphs in Excel, no problem. You need a supportive information technology organization. We're lucky at home office that they have established standards for data warehousing, for business intelligence tools, a variety of other processes and systems. So that's good. And you really need open-minded subject matter experts. So oftentimes you'll go to a subject matter expert and they'll say, well, I just want the same process I already have, but replicated in this new system. And that really doesn't allow you to generate even more value for them. They're just going to get what they had before with maybe a little bit less work in the end. And you don't want to just rebuild Excel spreadsheets. The fourth thing is Agile. On a project like this, I think that waterfall would doom you to failure. Like I said earlier, that kind of 80 or 85% of the work being kind of that data architecture work, that investment would seem like so much if you did it across a whole bunch of systems all at once, for example. So we took really small amounts of data at first and made sure to get it all the way through to the end. And you could see it in the business intelligence tool. And that really meant that people could see immediately that we were being successful. And that kind of built up our momentum throughout the project. So I'm a big fan of Agile. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the sort of delivery cycle, but we follow all of the Agile rules. We have all of the meetings that you're supposed to have, and we do take all of the steps that we're supposed to, and that's has been really helpful in us being able to deliver product really early, so that the business would trust us to do more work. Governance focus. We're really focused, and with Teradata's help, I much appreciate it actually, we're really focused on data architecture and governance. It's a really important part of the project. And also project governance to make sure that we're staying on track both within cost and schedule and scope, but also in terms of that Agile stuff. And the big benefit of following those conventions is consistency. It really helps as the solution gets larger and internal people are reusing the data. Oftentimes data ends up being reused in a way that wasn't originally contemplated, but also it provides support for the self-service analytics, which is somewhere where we want to get. And there's been a lot of compelling use cases about the large language model and agentic AI and stuff here at this conference. So this is just a little snippet of that data architecture that Johnny provided. And it's been a big help for us to understand how to structure the data. And it also kind of like helps us to communicate with our own team that these are the sorts of things that are expected from the sort of project that we're doing. And the sixth thing is collaboration. Throughout the project team and between the project team and the business, at all stages, it's essential to collaborate. Define a good user story, and then go back to subject matter experts during prototyping, during validation, through development testing, through the sprint review and post-delivery. You really, really need to collaborate and get the team back together and making sure that customer is really satisfied, because then they become kind of a bit of a project evangelist for you. And that's a really valuable thing. And the reason it's so important is because you end up with a long product roadmap, and you've got a variety of different people. And what would happen if you had a roadmap like this and you didn't have satisfied customers is inevitably the company would want to stop doing the work. They don't want to spend the money. They're not interested in spending the money if they're not seeing value. So you got to make sure that the people you're providing value to at first are telling everybody else about the value that they're getting out of the product. And so here's a really, really quick sample of project progress. We were really low in users, and we have about maybe 300 management employees like that. Maybe 100 or so, 150 have access to the system. At the start of this year, before the finance dashboards were deployed, there's literally 6 unique users that month. Once finance got deployed, that was a business process where finance said, we need to do cost center reviews, and we want a different way of doing it from Excel. And once that started, you can see it really ramping up. Safety dashboards were deployed, and people started going in for that reason. A few other items were deployed, and then people went on vacation. This was actually taken like the first week of August, so August is a bit of an outlier, and I haven't updated this graph since then. We did a lot of work on improving performance. At first, our vision was kind of like a one-stop shop, high-level dashboard for management. And so you can see on the far side there, originally we were going to bring in almost all data sources with high-level metrics all on one page. And as we went every few sprints, we would make sure to do some performance improvement. Have some performance improvement time in the sprint, and it really got us to a place where things were much more performant, and we got much more responsive pages. And you can see on the right now what we've done is we've just got a landing page rather than one dashboard with a whole bunch of different data pulls in it, and that really allows us to get each page up quicker as you demand them. One of the most interesting things is that we've integrated data from real-time sensors, which is necessary for that Solomon thing. This is in our control system. We have about 45,000 data objects in there, and they come in about every 3 seconds. So it's pretty high data frequency. I guess maybe kind of like on semi-structured data, time series data, and we're able to incorporate that now, and I think that's going to be a really big benefit for the refinery here as we go forward. So where are we going to go from here? Some areas for improvement. We could work on better change management, changing people's behaviors. They need to know that this is what they've asked for. So for almost the better part of 10 years, people were asking for this from me. I delivered it and they didn't use it. It's so strange, But people's habits are deep, and you have to be really careful that they do know that, but also that you integrate tightly into those business processes. You make sure you get that subject matter expert really believing in the work that's being done, which is a challenge because everybody's busy. You have to have people want the change. You got to drive that user adoption somehow. One of the ways that I really want to do it is to get these dashboards up in the meetings and get away from the Excel spreadsheets for the metrics reviews. We do have collaboration tools available now, so people can comment and start conversations in there, and that's a really big help, and that's on the MicroStrategy side. Flexible data security by role and user. We currently just have one real security group, and we need to get away from that. That'll be obvious to anyone who works in banking or anything like that. I guess a wide variety of companies would really need to do that. Right now, we've chosen to only allow users that we're okay with them seeing anything that's in there. And it would be really great to have data lineage tracking. I was talking with some people at a lunch yesterday, and it would really, really help. Our users are extremely knowledgeable about the data. They know a ton about it. A lot of them are engineers. They have a lot of responsibility. You know, a number of them make billion-dollar decisions every year, or they want to prevent fires and explosions. We did have a fire that the media characterized as an explosion this past year. So people are, are pretty uptight about that, understandably. And so they really need to know where the data comes from before they can trust it. And so we really need to work on that data lineage tracking. The takeaways for today, these are the things you heard, that approach for accessible delivery of data products to a business unit that doesn't have mature data management. 6 essential elements of a successful, efficient, and self-contained team. And the potential to expedite results from sourcing data from existing systems for a fraction of the cost of system replacement. We spent millions of dollars just talking about digital transformation. We've spent maybe a fifth of that on data analytics, and we're delivering product without actually having to have replaced the systems. So just the systems that we had were good enough in a lot of use cases. The thing is that any organization can replicate this approach, you have the potential to rapidly provide results. The hardest part is starting it and then having an ongoing commitment to the process when it gets difficult. So you got to do those 6 things, and you got to keep doing them even when it gets hard and there's a lot of headwinds and things like that. So that's what I'd recommend there. And that was my presentation. Thank you all very much for attending and being here for the last presentation of the day. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah. Any questions? Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm clueless about this industry, so if this is naive at all, but
not at all. Don't worry about it.
You mentioned some semi-structured data. I'm curious, when we talk about vector stores here, if you guys are envisioning any completely unstructured data that you might be able to unlock insights from. Big
time. That's an excellent question. And our Teradata reps are definitely keenly interested in getting us on that. One of the areas is that equipment inspections, so like making sure that pipes aren't corroded right through, for example, that would cause leaks. There's some really good CSB reports actually on situations involving that. Historically, a lot of that data was collected in Word documents and then PDFified and then saved in complex folder storage. And it's an absolute disaster. People are getting paid a lot of money, really, really skilled, talented people are getting paid a lot of money, ending up, surfing through files to try and figure out what the answer to historical problems with equipment has been. And it's an obvious use case, and we just kind of have to get there and commit to that, and kind of figure out when to prioritize that. But it is absolutely essential. We have I think it would blow people's minds how much management through what is basically pictures of documents and Excel files and Word documents. There's so much of it, even in an industry where we've had a CMMS or an ERP for decades. We still don't know our equipment history, for example, without surfing through photos of documents.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot, even around the world. A lot of demand for tacit knowledge and capturing that within vector stores to get that search through.
Yeah. So
it's a very common use case that's going to be coming forward.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
I'm just happy I knew what vector storage was. I am not an IT person at all, but yeah, no, we've talked about it.
Chris, you talked about driving enablement to kind of fuel the roadmap. Can you talk a little bit about the process for how you're ideating and building that roadmap itself?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. Johnny Gibson has a large number of pocket use cases that he presented to us, and we kind of were able to discuss which ones applied and which ones were maybe less applicable. And also, once he provided them to us, we were able to do that prioritization routine. So that spreadsheet's just some spreadsheet of mine that, it's just a multi-factor weighted analysis system. You kind of ask questions, answer them, score them, add up the scores, and that kind of helps you sort out what prioritization, what priorities you should use. So that's how we did it with Johnny's support. Another thing, though, is that every conversation, that you have with your coworkers is an opportunity to tease out user stories, to point out where they're doing things that could be done in different ways. And so even before I was working on any data stuff at the refinery, I was always talking to people about it. And so now they think it's just normal for me to talk to them about it, and they don't even realize that I'm actually working on the project. I don't tell them that that's what I'm doing, and it might be in the middle of a conversation about something else. I may be helping them with something else, and if they're feeling like a good sensation when you're talking to them about one thing, and then you slip in something about a project that you want to do and can help them with something, it helps put the project in a good light as you're doing that. So that's something I do as well. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes, great job on the presentation today.
Thank you.
What is in the 45,000 data points collected every 3 seconds or so? And
Yeah.
I assume it's time series. And while I have the microphone, where do you think AI could help, pull out some insights? What insights do you think you'd see?
Yeah, those are all good questions. So where that data comes from is a product called, used to be owned by OSI Soft, Pi, which is a data historian. It's quite a common tool in the process industry. Aviva bought it. And so that's now an Aviva tool. But it's super common in the process industry. Oftentimes, like if I was at a conference like this that was like American fuel producers or something like that, if I was at a conference like that and I said data historian, people would look at me kind of funny. And if I said Pi, they'd be oh yeah, Pi, okay, you mean Pi. So yeah, it comes from, that data is drawn generally from the control systems. At refineries, generally the control systems are DCSs, distributed control systems. And so every automated valve, almost all flows, pressures, temperatures are all brought into those DCSs and then either used just to know what the answer to the question is, or it's used to do controls. We are working a little bit on advanced process control, which is kind of like constantly tuning the set points to achieve objectives. So it's kind of like a second level control. As far as AI goes, I think there were some good presentations this week. One of the things that I've seen in the past is watching for certain data signatures in, for example, control valves. So like a control valve might exhibit a certain data signature in how it's operating just before it fails. And so you can actually do predictive stuff. And I don't want to hazard a guess at how many control valves we have, but like it would be thousands. And one person couldn't watch it, but I think that's a pretty obvious use case. Another one actually is, when you're doing data analysis of incident data or of management of change data or of corrective action data, what happens is you set up a system and you'll use a structured approach, like there might be an American Petroleum Institute standard that defines, what data you should collect for a certain safety, area. And then you do that, and then you might realize, oh, well, we don't have the categories we want. Some leader wants a certain categorization maybe, right? And something that we're thinking about right now is that when we set up our incident management system, we have literal hundreds of fields on different types of categories of data, but there's a few things that we've kind of come up with that we'd like to categorize that we can't. And so we'd like AI to process it and kind of do a 90% job of like categorizing our incidents, categorizing our impacts, categorizing what action plans we had, categorizing where we had problems with management of change. And so that's something that we're actually hoping to do this year. So that's, I'm a little nervous about AI because of how important it is for people to make the final decision. We have to be really careful about that. We have to be really careful about that because of the high consequence of failure for us. Yeah, it's a very high hazard industry.
Yeah,
of course.
as a follow-on to that, I'm not sure whether you know, but did you end up using the Teradata time series tables and indexes?
I don't know.
You don't know, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Another question, I'm interested I mean, I found it really interesting because I've suffered this in the past where,
I'm glad you found it interesting.
very much so. But whereas the resistance to move from Excel, the resistance to be able to fudge the numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us some stories or any anecdotes you have of getting around that.
It's still a challenge. I mean, people really want to, and like fairly powerful leaders really want to be able to like manage the information in a way that puts them in a good light, even if it's not, and they're not being dishonest. They're just not telling what the data definition is, and then they're changing it, And I think the thing is that until you're truly honest with yourself and with everyone else about what's going well and what's not, what the real answers are, you can't make real improvements. So there's there's the whole thing about you get what you measure. Well, if you're measuring things and you're changing the answer, what that ends up meaning is that you're not identifying the areas for improvement that you ought to be.
Yeah. Did you get that directive top down? Was it a top-down directive to change those behaviours, or was it more of a bottom-up where you showed the change?
I'd like to call it middle out.
Middle out, fair enough.
Yeah, I'm responsible for outcomes and indicators, so like the KPI, the KPI tree kind of thing, right? And the strategic planning, so your deliverables for the year, but also kind of like the scorecards and just performance target setting, that kind of thing, and also for like bonuses and stuff, right? And so there's certain areas where you really mustn't be dishonest. You got to be really open with your data, and democratizing it is so good. But if you democratize data and then people are reporting data that's different, for one thing, people are going to discover that. Another thing, though, is that if powerful leaders support one way of calculating things over another, maybe standard way of calculating things, they'll be able to say it's wrong, even in a system that's following an appropriate standard, which obviously isn't ideal.
Yeah. Any final questions?
Hello.
Hello.
So you talked a lot about value to the business, which I really, really appreciate. I think that's super, super important. Mm-hmm. So my question is, how is value defined by the Refinery or FCL as it pertains to Teradata?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I mean, there's really not very many things that you can do that are defined as value. We have 5 performance dimensions. They're safety, kind of like environment, production, finance, and people, so kind of like engagement. Those are the 5 areas of performance, and I think that most process industries that have something similar to those 5 areas. And really what you need to do is you need to either make more of things that you want or less of things you don't want, right? And so for safety, fewer safety incidents is a key thing. We have a consultancy that's working on business performance management systems right now, and since we've really worked not only on bringing the data out to people, but actually having like certain behaviors that are expected and stuff at meetings, our leading indicators for safety incidents are way down. Like the trend is so good, but I mean, I'm talking like orders of magnitude down, and we really need to get that information reflected in data analytics so that we can claim part of that benefit and say like, look, it's partly because of data analytics that we've done this. And so that's where we need to get to for that one. But I mean, like, generally, like most companies, making more money, spending less money, making more product, needing to consume less product. These are the things that really are the key drivers.